forensics on this long chase. He says that it's not because he has any warrants.
On the evening of 15th February 2026, detectives in New London launched a murder investigation after a man was found fatally shot on Connecticut Avenue, authorities confirmed. Police responded to reports of gunfire just after 7:19 p.m. on Sunday night near the intersection of Prest Street and McDonald Street. Officers arriving at the scene located an unidentified male victim suffering from gunshot wounds to his lower body. Despite immediate medical aid and transport to a hospital, the man was later pronounced dead. At this stage, investigators have withheld the victim's identity pending notification of next of kin, a standard procedure in active homicide cases. The New London Police Department's Detective Division has taken charge of the inquiry, processing the crime scene and conducting interviews with potential witnesses as they seek to establish a timeline of events and identify a suspect or suspects. Police have not released details of a suspect description, motive, or any arrests, emphasizing that the investigation is ongoing. Authorities reiterated that they are committed to allocating all necessary resources to solve the case and maintain public safety. Members of the public with information about the shooting are being urged to contact the New London Police Department's Detective Division at 860-447-1481, or to submit anonymous tips through the New London Tips 411 system by texting NLPD tip plus information to tip 411, 847-411. This fatal shooting on Connecticut Avenue adds to growing concerns about gun violence in communities across the state and underscores the importance of timely cooperation between police and the public in solving such crimes. As investigators continue to gather evidence, the city watches and waits for answers about who was responsible for the death and why this 2026 incident occurred on a Sunday evening in a part of New London typically familiar to residents. On the night of 16 February 2026, a stretch of Connecticut Avenue in New London became the focus of an urgent homicide investigation after a man was found fatally shot, his identity still unknown as police worked to notify next of kin. What began as reports of gunfire quickly escalated into a full-scale murder probe, adding another unresolved killing to the growing list of violent crimes that leave communities waiting for answers. According to police, officers were dispatched to Connecticut Avenue shortly after reports of shots fired. When they arrived, they discovered an adult male suffering from gunshot wounds. Emergency medical personnel attempted life-saving measures, but despite those efforts, the man was later pronounced dead. From that moment, the area shifted from an ordinary city street into an active crime scene, sealed off with police tape as detectives began their work. The victim's identity was deliberately withheld, a standard but emotionally charged step taken until family members can be formally notified. In homicide cases, this period can last hours or even days, leaving the public with only fragments of information and a sense of unease. For investigators, however, the priority is accuracy and dignity, ensuring that families learn of a loss through official channels rather than rumors or social media. Detectives from the New London Police Department took control of the scene, joined by forensic specialists who methodically documented every detail. Shell casings, bloodstain patterns, and the precise location of the victim were carefully logged. Streetlights illuminated the pavement as evidence markers were placed, each one representing a clue that could help reconstruct the final moments of the man's life. Investigators emphasized that the shooting appeared targeted rather than random, but they cautioned that determining motive at this early stage would be premature. In such cases, detectives often keep details close to protect the integrity of the investigation. Connecticut Avenue is a mixed residential and commercial area, familiar to local residents and typically busy even in the evening hours. That reality presents both challenges and opportunities for investigators. On one hand, the density of people and vehicles means potential witnesses and multiple camera angles. On the other, separating relevant information from background activity requires time, patience, and careful analysis. Detectives immediately began canvassing the area, knocking on doors and speaking with residents and business owners. Witnesses were asked whether they heard gunshots, saw anyone fleeing, or noticed unusual behavior in the minutes before or after the shooting. Police also appealed for dashcam footage and mobile phone recordings, knowing that even brief clips can prove decisive in tracing a suspect's movements. As the night wore on, the presence of law enforcement remained heavy. Patrol cars lined nearby streets, and officers stood guard while forensic work continued. For many residents, the scene was a stark reminder of how quickly violence can intrude into daily life. Some watched from windows, others gathered at a distance, all aware that a man had lost his life just steps from their homes. By early morning, police confirmed that the case was being treated as a homicide. The detective division formally assumed responsibility, and a murder investigation was launched. Authorities reiterated that the victim's identity would be released only after next of kin were notified, underscoring the sensitivity of the situation. The lack of immediate answers fueled speculation, something police actively sought to discourage. In public statements, officials urged patience and cooperation, emphasizing that investigations unfold in stages. Initial facts, time, location, cause of death, are often all that can be responsibly shared while evidence is still being gathered. Gun violence has been an ongoing concern in parts of Connecticut, and each fatal shooting intensifies scrutiny on public safety strategies. Community leaders in New London acknowledge the fear such incidents create, particularly when suspects remain at large. Shootings with unidentified victims pose unique challenges. Without a confirmed identity, establishing motive becomes more complex. Detectives must work backward, piecing together who the victim was, where he came from, and why he was in that location at that time. This process often involves fingerprint analysis, missing persons databases, and coordination with state and federal agencies. Police sources indicated that they were exploring multiple avenues to identify the victim. Hospital records, forensic databases, and outreach to neighboring jurisdictions are commonly used in such efforts. In some cases, personal belongings or distinctive tattoos provide clues. Until identification is confirmed, however, detectives must proceed cautiously, ensuring that any assumptions are supported by evidence. As daylight returned to Connecticut Avenue, the crime scene was gradually cleared, but the impact lingered. Residents spoke quietly about the incident, some expressing fear, others frustration that violence continues to claim lives without clear resolution. Memorials had not yet appeared, largely because the victim remained unnamed, but the sense of loss was palpable. Police presence in the area was increased in the days following the shooting, both to reassure the public and to encourage information sharing. Officers engaged with residents, explaining how to submit tips anonymously, and reminding them that even seemingly minor observations could matter. The investigation also highlighted the critical role of public cooperation. In many homicide cases, breakthroughs come not from dramatic confessions, but from small details provided by ordinary people: a license plate number, a description of clothing, a direction of travel. Police repeatedly emphasized that anonymity options exist for those fearful of retaliation. Behind the scenes, detectives began analyzing digital data. Cell phone records, location pings, and nearby surveillance footage can help establish timelines and identify connections. In urban investigations, this digital layer often complements traditional detective work, filling gaps left by human memory. The question of motive remained unanswered. Without an identified victim or suspect, investigators refrained from labeling the shooting as gang-related, domestic, or opportunistic. Such classifications, police noted, can mislead the public and hinder investigations if applied prematurely. For the family of the victim, wherever they may be, the process unfolding is deeply painful. Learning of a loved one's death through police notification is devastating under any circumstances. The added delay caused by identification procedures can prolong uncertainty and grief. Law enforcement agencies are trained to handle such notifications with care, often involving multiple officers, and when possible, support services. The New London shooting also fits into a broader pattern where firearms remain a leading cause of homicide. Each case raises familiar questions. How did the weapon end up in the wrong hands? Could the violence have been prevented? What resources are needed to stop the next shooting? Local officials reiterated their commitment to addressing gun violence through a combination of enforcement, community engagement, and prevention programs. As days pass without an arrest, the pressure on investigators increases. Detectives are acutely aware of the balance between speed and accuracy. An arrest made without sufficient evidence risks collapse in court, while delays can erode public trust. Police leadership emphasized that the priority remains building a solid, evidence-based case. For now, the confirmed facts are stark. On 16 February 2026, an unidentified man was shot and killed on Connecticut Avenue in New London. No suspect has been publicly named. A murder investigation is ongoing, and detectives continue to pursue leads. The story is far from over. As evidence is analyzed and information emerges, the public will learn more about who the victim was and what led to his death, the unanswered questions that follow gun violence, and of a city waiting for justice. This case, like so many others, underscores the human cost behind crime statistics. An unnamed man lost his life. A family will soon receive devastating news, and a community is left hoping that persistence, cooperation, and careful investigation will bring clarity and accountability in the days ahead. As the investigation into the fatal shooting on Connecticut Avenue continued, the focus in New London shifted from the shock of the crime itself to the long, uncertain wait for answers. With the victim still unidentified and no suspect publicly named, detectives entered one of the most delicate phases of any homicide case, building clarity where almost none exists. In the days after 16 February 2026, investigators worked simultaneously on two critical fronts. The first was identifying the man who lost his life. Police confirmed that standard identification procedures were underway, including fingerprint analysis, checks against missing persons databases, and coordination with state and federal agencies. This process, while methodical, particularly when a victim has no immediate identification or when records are incomplete. Until next of kin are formally notified, police have maintained strict confidentiality, balancing public interest with respect for the family that will soon receive devastating news. The second front was the search for whoever pulled the trigger. Detectives continued to analyze CCTV footage from businesses, traffic cameras, and residential properties along and around Connecticut Avenue. In a city environment, movements are often captured in fragments, someone passing briefly through a frame, a vehicle appearing for only seconds. Investigators stitched these fragments together, looking for patterns that suggest escape routes. Police reiterated appeals for anyone who heard gunshots, saw a confrontation, or noticed unusual activity on the evening of the killing to come forward. Even accounts that seem uncertain or incomplete can help corroborate timelines when matched with other evidence. Officers emphasized that tips can be submitted anonymously, recognizing that fear of retaliation often prevents people from speaking openly. Behind the scenes, analysts reviewed digital evidence that increasingly defines modern homicide investigations. Cell phone data, where lawfully obtained, can reveal proximity between devices, movement patterns, and contact histories. Such information can narrow a broad field of possibilities into a focused list of persons of interest. Police have stressed, however, that digital data alone is never enough. It must be supported by physical evidence and credible testimony. The unresolved nature of the case has weighed heavily on the community. Residents near Connecticut Avenue described a lingering sense of unease, particularly at night. While police increased patrols to reassure the public, the absence of an arrest left many questioning how safe their neighborhood truly is. Community leaders urged calm, reminding residents that most homicide investigations require time, and that premature conclusions can hinder justice. Gun violence remains a deeply emotional issue in Connecticut, as it does across the United States. Each fatal shooting raises broader questions about access to firearms, conflict resolution, and prevention. Officials in New London have acknowledged these concerns, reiterating commitments to violence prevention initiatives, youth outreach, and collaboration with community organizations. Yet for many residents, such conversations feel abstract when set against the immediate reality of an unsolved killing. For the victim's family, still waiting to be identified, the days following the shooting represent a painful limbo. Homicide investigators and victim services units are trained to handle notifications with care, but the delay can compound grief. Families often describe this period as one of dread and confusion, knowing something is wrong, but not yet having answers. When identification is confirmed, police will release the victim's name publicly, allowing the community to understand who was lost and to mourn with specificity. From a legal perspective, the case remains firmly in the investigative stage. Prosecutors cannot act until suspects are identified and evidence reaches the threshold required for charges. Detectives must therefore be meticulous, ensuring that when an arrest is made, it is supported by facts that can withstand scrutiny in court. This deliberate pace can be frustrating for the public, but it is essential to securing convictions that last. The New London Police Department has emphasized transparency within limits, promising updates as soon as information can be responsibly shared. Officials have cautioned against misinformation circulating on social media, noting that rumors can misdirect investigations and deepen harm. They urged residents to rely on official statements and reputable reporting as the case evolves. As time passes, the investigation will likely narrow. Leads will be confirmed or eliminated, evidence will be re-examined, and new information may surface. Many homicide cases reach turning points weeks after the initial crime, when a single tip or piece of footage reveals what was previously hidden. Detectives remain confident that persistence and public cooperation can bring that breakthrough. For now, the story remains one of unanswered questions. Who was the man killed on Connecticut Avenue? Why was he targeted? And who is responsible? Until those questions are resolved, the case stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of gun violence and the uncertainty it leaves behind. What is certain is this: on 16 February 2026, a life ended violently in New London. A family will soon learn of a loss that changes everything. And a city continues to wait for identification, for arrests, and for justice. If you believe accurate, fact-checked reporting matters, like this video to support responsible journalism, share it so critical information reaches the right people, and subscribe for more in-depth news documentary stories built on verified sources and careful investigation.